Your site of Moshe Rabbeinu, Zayin Adar. There's a law that if someone passed away in a regular year, then usually in a leap year you should do the yortzeit in the first of Adar, in the first month of Adar. I think it's connected to what we spoke about, like prepare ourselves for the Simcha of Purim. So it's another way to tell you, okay, do whatever you need to do about yortzeit and everything in Adar alef. And then maybe in Adar Bet will be more available to be happy, but this is not why I want to speak with you today. I gave you that paper not because it's going to be so long. I'm mainly going to read those words to share them with you. I'm not going to say a lot of them because this is from Rabbi Zaks and his word standing for themselves. Mainly because I knew if I read it without you having the words, I'll misread something or you misunderstand. So I think this time it's better if you have the physical copy. I'll just give you a short background what it speaks about. So this week's Parshat is Parashat Tetzave. Is one out of 5 Parshiot that speaks about the Mishkan, the Mikdash. It's going to be the Mikdash eventually. And this week in Parshat Tetzave, it's mainly about the Kohanim, the priests, and their clothing and their work to do. So there's a quote. This is from Parshat Yitro actually, but it says, "Ve'atem tiuli mamlechet kohanim ve'koei kadosh." God says to Bnei Israel, "You will be to me kingdom of priests and a holy nation." And a lot of commentators ask, well, we know not everyone is kohanim, not everyone is priest in ours, in Bnei Israel. So what does it mean? And you will be to me a kingdom of priests. So this is what Rabbi Zaks speaks about. This is what he's trying to answer. And the reason that I brought it today, so first, because our Parsha speaks a lot about Kohanim, so I think it's similar. It's connected to that. But also, I think Moshe Rabbeinu maybe can be a perfect example of a priest. And after we read that, I'll explain why I am saying a priest, even though Aaron was the priest out of those two. So I'm going to read it. Again, I'm not going to say a lot after that, so don't be so, don't try to be not so exhausted. I'm going to read it quite fast because you have the words. Okay, so again, it's about the statement, and you will be to me a kingdom of priests. This is a very striking statement. I'm reading from the beginning. Every nation had its priest. In the book of Genesis, we encounter Melchizedek, Abraham's contemporary, described as a priest of the Most High God. The story of Joseph mentioned the Egyptian priest whose land was not nationalized during the famine. Yitro was a Midianist priest. In the ancient world, there was nothing distinctive about priesthood. Every nation had its priest and holy men. What was distinctive about Israel was that every one of its members was to be a priest. Each of its citizens was called on to be holy. And we need to understand what exactly it means. This is Rabbi Zaks speaking again. I vividly recall standing with Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz in the General Assembly of the United Nations in August 2000, at a unique gathering of 2,000 religious leaders representing all the major faiths in the world. I point out that even in that distinguished company, we were different. We were almost the only religious leaders wearing suits. All the others wore robes of office. It is an almost universal phenomenon that priests and holy people wear distinctive garments to indicate that they are set apart. The core meaning of the word kadosh, holy. I'm in the second part of it right now. In post-biblical Judaism, there were no robes of office because everyone was accepted to be holy. And I'm skipping the parentheses. Yet, in what sense were Jews ever a kingdom of priests? The priests were an elite within the nation, member of the tribe of Levi, descendants of Aaron, the first high priest. There never was a full democratization of Keter Kehuna, the crown of priesthood. Faced with this problem, the commentators offers 2 solutions. Okay, so again, the question right now is how exactly to understand the fact that we all are priests. That was the background for Rabbi Zaks, and now he's going to give the answers. So the word Kohanim, I'm in the 3rd paragraph in the second part of what I gave you. The word Kohanim, priest, may mean princes or leaders. This is by Rashi and Rashbam. But another option or it may mean servants. This is Ibn Ezra and Ramban. But this is precisely the point. The Israelites were called on to be a nation of servant leaders. They were the people called on by virtue of the covenant to accept responsibility not only for themselves and their families, but for that later became known, but for the moral, spiritual state of the nation as a whole. This is the principle that later became known as Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Bazeh. All Israelites are responsible for one another. Jews were the people who did not leave leadership to a single individual, however holy or excelled, or to an elite. Instead, every one of them was accepted to be both a prince and a servant. That is to say, every one of them was called on to be a leader. Never was leadership more profoundly democratized. I'm in the last paragraph. That is what made Jews historically hard to lead. As Chaim Weizmann, first president of Israel, famously said, "I had a nation of 1,000,000 presidents. The Lord may be our shepherd, but no Jews was ever a sheep." At the same time, it is what led Jews to have an impact on the world out of all population of their numbers. Jews constitute only the tiniest fragment, 1/5 of 1% of the population of the world, but an extraordinary high percentage of leaders in any given field of human endeavor. To be a Jew is to be called on to lead. I hope you survived that, my English and the words. Like I promised, I'm not going to say a lot after that. It's beautiful words by Rabbi Zaks. I'm just going to say, Jews always will be leaders. This is Moshe Rabbeinu, our first, I think, main leader through all the years in the desert. But it's also about Esther that we're going to read in Purim. Like we said, we're preparing ourselves for Purim from 40 days before Purim. So every time I'll try to touch Purim also. Esther, if you remember from the Megillah, was afraid for a second. She thought, how can I go to Achashverosh and start speaking with him? And Mordechai famously told her, "Umi yodea im le'et kazot egad lemalchut." Who knows if this is the time that because of that you became the queen. You need to be there. If you don't do it, someone else will do it. But as Jews, how he said that, to be a Jew is to be called on to lead. So good luck, all of us, with that. Have a good evening.